Ganondorf is one of Nintendo's biggest villains, and with that has come many different iterations of him. But which one of these has the best design? That topic is more up in the air. As a hardcore enthusiast of character design who has done this for multiple characters across the years, I've been researching Ganondorf's character design history, looking at all of his appearances in the mainline games, spin-offs, and even kind of discovering a few unexpected ones that I never thought I'd uncover. We'll take a look at some of those today, along with some of my favourites, hopefully learn something new, and ultimately decide which Ganondorf design I think is best. So before we jump into his first appearance, who is Ganondorf? Truthfully, with his reputation, you'd think he was actually a bigger part of the Zelda series than he actually is. Tears of the Kingdom recently was notable for bringing him back to the series, as he was missing in Breath of the Wild and Skyward Sword. As much as I like a series mixing things up, his return was welcomed by me, as Demise really was not a character I was too fond of. Vati stands represent, but even in the games where the character is present, he typically appears more often as Ganon, his beast pig-like form. The human character, Ganondorf, wasn't actually mentioned until the third Zelda game, A Link to the Past. This is wherein the King of Thieves entered the Sacred Realm and became Ganon in the process. Despite this, he's the de facto villain of the series, and common enemy of our two heroes, with the Triforce of Power forming the link between them, no pun intended, and establishing him as such a memorable character. As always, a big part of that is down to the incredible character design, hence this video. In general, he's depicted with red hair, bushy eyebrows, evil looking golden eyes, dark olive green skin, and a head brooch. He's a member of the Gerudo, who have been a staple of Zelda races alongside Hylians, Gorons, and Zoras since the Ocarina of Time era. Typically, Ganondorf is a very reliable standard when it comes to his designs across games, often matching them or showing off subtle changes that make each depiction so distinct. So despite being name-dropped in the story of A Link to the Past, Ganondorf wouldn't make his first appearance until the Ocarina of Time, appearing in a nightmare dream sequence atop a horse's back. This first glimpse would look at events to come, and this debut entry of the character displayed him very clearly as a human, working his way around the Kingdom of Hyrule, appearing as a loyal subject, desperate to make his own power play. He's depicted as a muscular man who wears black armour across his body, alongside hand gauntlets with plated golden spikes and a golden jewel. He also wears brown outer armour, consisting of intricate designs reminiscent of his tribe, the Gerudo. He has a giant pointed nose, really quite Triple H in scale, and his eyebrows are quite frankly insane, with official artwork of the game showing that they seemingly connect straight into his hairline. I've got some giant eyebrows, but truthfully, this puts mine to shame. And I have no hair. Stay out of my territory. Of course, time travel is a very important mechanic in the Ocarina of Time, and while 7 years of time travel has left me feeling quite cold in the winter season, Ganondorf retains a very similar appearance in opposition to Link's puberty spurt. As the great king of evil, Ganondorf's hair has grown longer to shoulder length. He now wears a red cape with intricate gold lining throughout and tassels along the bottom. He also got Link's fashion memo, as he now wears earrings alongside our hero. I don't understand why, but I really appreciate the Triforce's dedication to accessorizing. This artwork of the final showdown is probably one of the most memorable pieces of Zelda artwork I'd ever seen as a kid. How epic is that? Truly fond memories getting a full-size wall poster of this with the official Nintendo magazine in the UK. We didn't have Nintendo Power. Did anyone else have this bad boy? When you consider this is the first time we'd ever seen Ganondorf in a Zelda game, this is a really fantastic and memorable depiction of the character. I'd place a safe bet that this might be one of your favourites. To be honest, it could quite easily end up being one of mine too. This incarnation of Ganondorf would crop up again very soon, popping up in an exclusive show floor demo at Space World 2000. Thank you very much to NoClip for uncovering this in quality that wasn't filmed on a potato. People loved this back in the day, they called it a showpiece. But I'm going to be honest with you, I think it's pretty disgusting. I don't think it looks good at all. Obviously, Captain Hindsight and YouTube videos looking at ancient topics and whatnot, but I'm really happy that Zelda didn't go in this direction. Zelda took a different direction for its first foray onto the GameCube, with Ganondorf re-emerging as part of the Wind Waker. While his appearance perhaps didn't feel quite as drastic of a shift as Link's was, there were tons of differences here that changed the character in a way that has made him memorable alongside the rest of the game's historic transition to cell shading. We don't get a sense of this Ganondorf's muscle definition, as he's obscured by a large long-sleeve black and orange cloak, made up with detailed designs that display the Helmarok King. What an awesome name, a giant bird that does his bidding. This cloak also resembles the wingspan of a bird, but it also obscures a lot of his other clothing. We can make out a red loose-fitting shirt, boots and a new necklace/pendant, which goes along with the returning gem in his forehead. My favourite small change to his physical appearance is in his eyebrows, which luckily for Ganondorf are no longer part of his hairline. Hooray! These are made more distinct by spirals at the end of each, reminiscent of how Wind Waker displays both the sea and the wind. The change in art styles between games has also led to his design being a lot sharper around the edges, with his nose in particular now appearing more beak-like compared to the giant schnoz he had in Ocarina. He's still an imposing character, but his new appearance makes him look more aged and decrepit. He's imposing, but he's not quite as imposing. He feels like he's been aged and withered by the sands of time. As a result of these changes, his muscles are hidden and he feels older and wiser. The timeline is kind of ropey now that Nintendo has released this monstrosity, but as a kid playing this, I always assumed that this was the same Ganondorf from Ocarina of Time, after a run-in with Father Time. Just as an FYI, I'm sure I said this many years ago in the Link video, but I'm gonna say it again, and I'm also not gonna check that old video because I'm not watching that But I'll say it again, I'm still not a fan of the huge changes they kind of made to the art direction in Wind Waker HD, an updated port that made alterations to the game's graphic style and character art. Side by side, looking at the updated character renders, I feel like so much of the charm of this original artwork is lost. It's recreating something with an absence of what the whole aesthetic was even about. It's too clean, the outlines are gone. Wind Waker's hand-drawn parchment style is its identity. This looks fine, but why change it so drastically? Does anyone actually prefer how this looks? Needless to say, despite my complaints about something I've definitely complained about before, that doesn't sound like me if you know me personally. This is probably one of the finest characterizations of Ganondorf in a Zelda game. He feels like he's on this tragic journey, going through the motions, and despite being, you know, evil, you actually feel for him. He longs for things to be the way they were before the Great Sea rose over Hyrule, and this design complements his new arc perfectly. It's one of the best cases of nuanced storytelling in a Zelda, truthfully, making you think a lot whilst telling and showing you very little. His design is a big piece behind that element working so well. At this time, I'd just like to say thank you for watching this video. I've been making character design videos for such a long time, they're always an insane amount of effort, but you guys keep coming back. Thank you, I genuinely really appreciate it. If you're new here and you want to see more, please, you know what you need to do. Click the subscribe button, hit the weird bell thing that comes up. It does help smaller channels like mine out, especially when brands kind of look at people to work with. They look at people with under 30,000 subscribers and they say, only 30,000 subscribers? Well, his videos get lots of views, but the subscribers are too low. Please, I'm begging you, click the goddamn button. You can tell this bit didn't have a script. The next Zelda to feature Ganondorf would throw out the cell shading and head into the darkness in pursuit of the Twilight. No, you've had enough millennial humour for this episode. We're not going there with that one, you'll get a Twitter thread instead. Twilight Princess was thematically one of the darker Zelda games. Some would say it was too dark and devoid of any life, but that's a different video topic entirely. Twilight Princess was one of the darker Zelda games, yes, embracing a slightly more realistic graphic style that catered to those clamouring for whatever this was, and they were in luck, as this game would be a pseudo-sequel to Ocarina of Time. I say that very, very loosely. People are claiming that this skeleton man is actually Link from Ocarina of Time, and I say, you are crazy! Please, stop telling me these things, it just makes no sense. But the game does feature, again, similarly to Ocarina of Time, an older Link, similar temple themes, and allegedly the exact same Ganondorf. Well, it's not alleged. It was confirmed in Zelda's encyclopedia, the Hyrule Historia. Fuck you, you stupid book. Design-wise, I don't see these necessarily as the same character, as there are distinct differences between them. Sure, Ganondorf's eyebrows have rejoined his hairline, an ancient tradition, but he's dressed completely differently. And while we can't see his physique as clearly as in Ocarina, as he now wears a full suit of black armour, he feels bigger, like he's carrying around a heavier amount of muscle mass. This is something I really like, given the Triforce of Power came to this Ganondorf uniquely in a divine prank from the gods, even leaving him with a unique design on his chest from where he had been impaled by the sword of the Seven Sages. Given he's a much angrier and physically intimidating character this time around, it makes him feel truly like an embodiment of power and rage. Alongside the rest of the outfit, he wears a long red cape, reminiscent of his final boss showdown in Ocarina of Time. And overall, he feels like an older version of the character. It's a very different age and process to Wind Waker, as this Ganondorf maintains a strong posture and form. This is somewhat of an offshoot rant, but I refuse to leave it alone. I hate what the Hyrule Historia implies. Trying to connect the line and dots in an anthology series like Zelda, where recurring elements come back every couple of years and then disappear again, makes absolutely no sense. It doesn't feel cohesive, it's completely redundant. This Ganondorf is allegedly the same one from Ocarina of Time. Absolutely fine, I can accept that. At the end of Ocarina of Time, Link went back into his child form, dobbed Ganondorf in when he was sucking up to the royal court, and then they punished him by putting him in this scenario. I can accept that. But the one in Wind Waker breaks a seal and comes out of hiding when Link leaves Hyrule. I always assumed that this was Link leaving and heading off to Termina in Majora's Mask, hence he went missing from the timeline and the seal broke. According to the Historia, that happened in a different timeline. So what? This Link just fucked off. See you later lads, I'll be back in a reincarnation or two. It's nonsense, I hate it. Next you'll be telling me there's an official Sonic the Hedgehog timeline. While I took a bit of the poo-poo all over Wind Waker HD, I actually quite like what Twilight Princess HD does in comparison, especially when it comes to character artwork and graphics. In regards to Ganondorf specifically, it feels like the game understands who the character was in the original version and doesn't sacrifice any elements of the game's style, simply giving us more of the same in higher quality. However, if Wind Waker's Ganondorf was the master of nuance, Twilight Princess is the master of evil, evil, bad man, spooky, spooky, evil. Ganondorf is a beast in this game, quite literally at some points, but it's hard not to think of this version as Ocarina of Time's on growth hormone. Don't get me wrong, it's better than this, yes it is, but while it's imposing, I couldn't ever really shake that he didn't fit in with the vibe of this game. Enemies like Zant, for example, fitted that neon twilight otherworldly theme much better, until he took the mask off and started screaming like a lunatic and lost all credibility. However, it's a design that is a clear embodiment of him and his role as wielder of the Triforce of Power. And for that reason alone, it still stands out as a strong character design for him. What is this timeline? Of course, it wouldn't be a best design series video without Smash Bros. Somehow forcing its way into the conversation. While Ganondorf missed out on the first game that admittedly was a little bit of a quiet roster looking back on it today, especially now that less is more apparently does not apply to a single piece of media, but Ganondorf was represented across this series frequently, largely using an appearance reminiscent of whatever form he was using at the time, except for Wind Waker. Wind Waker was left out. They did not do this for Wind Waker. We got Toon Link, we got no Ganondorf, we got no Tetra. Unforgivable. I'm very close to the microphone. Melee's design, weirdly, is actually more reminiscent of the Space World demo mentioned earlier, though it feels like a more complete vision and less a sight to draw disgust at. Brawl and 3DS/Wii U, I literally can't believe these were the game's names, are based on his Twilight Princess appearance. However, his second appearance added in the chest wound from where he was impaled with the Sword of Six Sages. I think I might accessorise today. Gonna wear that armour that has the stab line from where I was killed. Surprisingly, Ultimate reverted Ganondorf back to his Ocarina of Time design. Weirdly, it was the first time the character ever got a sword in his moveset, despite the Ganondorfs who did use swords constantly fighting with their fists. A confusing Falcon Punch of events. I just need to say quickly, I know I appear a lot more in these videos these days, and honestly, someone sent this comment when I first started doing it, saying I'm some kind of TikTok fuckboy, and I still can't really work out what they mean. Of course, I can't talk about fighting game spin-offs without a quick mention of Hyrule Warriors, as Ganondorf would show up in a prominent role in this Dynasty Warriors inspired series. At a glance, it's a design very reminiscent of Twilight Princess's, making use of the same crown and bulkier armour, but it's easy to see the Warriors series design inspiration when compared, especially when looked at against a character such as Lu Bu. This feels like an ancient Chinese depiction of Ganondorf, as if he was an overlord or high-ranking general of war. His status is reinforced by the introduction of gold incorporated into his armour via new claw-like gloves, an additional ruby jewel in his breastplate, his belt, or the finer detailings of his armour. He also wears furs as his undergarments, suggesting he's spending a lot of time on the battlefield night or day. I think I'm a bit less of a fan of this design just because it feels so derivative. Can't say that word. It feels so similar to Twilight Princess's design. There are definitely some differences. His hair is much longer than it ever has been before, but his stature and outfit still feels very similar. Factor in that along with Super Smash Bros. Fatigue, it was probably too much of a similar thing. And while it's not my favourite, it does make sense to build off of the design that looked most like it was ready to fight in battle. Hyrule Warriors also did feature an awesome amount of love for previous Ganondorf designs, as across the games his appearances in Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess were given some shine as alternate costumes. While I love the way Wind Waker has been adapted outside of its cell shading, I'm not 100% sure what happened to Ocarina of Times. I feel like calling this the Wish version is a disservice to Wish. Now, before we get to the final chronological entry, there are a couple of different versions of Ganondorf I found that I think I've just got to mention, and this is because they're either interesting, cool, or absurd. Some of them I'd never been aware of until I started researching this video. First up, there was a scrap design for Ganondorf that was due to feature in the Oracle games for the Game Boy Color. Of course, Ganon would turn up in both of those games. Here he wore a belt buckle reminiscent of this Ganon design, along with pointed boots and a long cloak. This is pre-Wind Waker, so it's a mild foreshadowing of a future outfit. However, here it's very differently executed, with the biggest Dracula collar you've ever seen in an outfit. Other than that, it's quite reminiscent of his Ocarina of Time muscular form, and includes a hairline that the Prince of All Saiyans would be proud of. I wonder why they dropped this from development. Weirdly, Ganondorf also popped up in that era where every Nintendo third-party port was getting an oddly themed Nintendo cosmetic. You know, to justify how long it took the port to turn up on consoles. Ganondorf appears cosmetically in Diablo 3 for Nintendo Switch as an armor set for the Barbarian class. Again, based on the Twilight Princess look. There's that fatigue setting in again. And finally, on a very different end of the spectrum, an 8-bit version of Ganondorf made its way into the first Mario Maker game on the Wii U, unlocked with the Ganondorf amiibo that was based on his Smash Bros. Design. This one is actually funny to see, as technically it's Twilight Princess's Ganondorf in 8-bit, with less colours present in his palette. However, in a strange loophole, the limited colours used to fit in with the environment are much more vibrant, leading to him becoming much more colourful than he has ever looked before. Nearly there. I mentioned in my Ganon video how much I enjoyed the appearance of Calamity Ganon at the end of Breath of the Wild. It felt like a perfect blend of the human element of Ganondorf and the beast Ganon, with something not quite right in between, like the transformation had gone wrong or his human form had ascended to a level beyond comprehension. So when the Calamity did fall, I wondered what was next for this series, especially when we found out that Ganondorf was returning in the game's sequel. Despite being somewhat confusing given the events in both of the games, maybe someone should make an official timeline. Ganondorf's appearance in the launch trailer for Tears of the Kingdom was one of Nintendo's best marketing moves I've ever seen. We all theorised Ganondorf would be back, but the way he appeared, and after a long absence, with amazing voiceover by Matt Mercer, was an easy way to boost everyone's hype levels. Truthfully, I was down on the idea of Tears of the Kingdom even existing in general, and as soon as I saw this and heard that voiceover, it completely sold me on the game. Great work whoever edited this trailer, seriously, just this moment alone, I think sold the game for so many people.
Do not look away. You witness a king's revival and the birth of his new world.
In Tears of the Kingdom, Ganondorf's physique is definitely more noticeable when compared to some of his previous outings. He is the embodiment of swole, with a broad chest, big arms and massively defined abs. The Gerudo emblem is tattooed to his arm, and his long hair is tied into a bun and a ponytail. He also wears a robe similar to the one he wore in the Wind Waker, however this time he wears it over one arm. Not only is this alluring to his proficiency with a sword, it seems like a conscious decision to have him resemble a samurai, as they are typically depicted as Japanese figures of history dedicated to honor. Honor is very important here. It reflects the vibe Ganondorf is originally giving off in the story. He's a Trojan horse hiding his deeper evil and ready to turn on his allies at any moment. Given that Ganondorf is originally a member of the Gerudo tribe and accepted in the wider kingdom of Hyrule, the vibe of his outfit all over is reminiscent of the champions and royal family across both Breath of the Wild and its sequel. He's littered with similar golden jewelry throughout his outfit. Of course, I did allude to him earlier, but later in the Zelda timeline, Skyward Sword would actually reveal Ganondorf to be a reincarnation of the ancient evil Demise, which would give some background to the character's often brute-like appearance, muscle mass, and hair that is an embodiment of fire and rage. While this video hasn't been an analysis of Demise, specifically his feet, if you've played Skyward Sword, you've seen those up close enough already, it's important to note that one of Ganondorf's forms here is quite clearly inspired by it. Ganondorf becomes the Demon King during the events of Tears of the Kingdom's story, and while the nickname drives me insane based on some of my previous watching habits,
Demon King! A Demon King and he Demon Kings! The Demon King!
This transformation feels like the opposite to Ganondorf's human form. Ganondorf is at first well presented, nicely dressed, and presentable. However,
the Demon King
is this coming undone at the seams. The colour of his skin is dark like ash, and his hair is lit brightly like the blood moons that occur throughout regular gameplay intervals. His hair is now longer, flows freely, and complements the disfigurement of Ganondorf's arm by taking a form similar to the malice that infects Hyrule and Link at the beginning of the game. Along with that, his arm is covered in ancient patterns similar to those seen in other Zonai technology. Of course, the most noticeable demon-like features are two horns prominent on his head and sharp fang-like teeth in his mouth. It feels like a very human transformation, as opposed to Beast Ganon in the past. It feels like a visual representation of how this Ganondorf feels internally and the darker side of his humanity. Oh boy, that was a lot of talking. So that's all the Ganondorf designs we've got time for today. And as ever, picking a best one is an especially hard decision for me personally. Ocarina of Time established the template. Wind Waker has my favourite characterization, complementing a fitting redesign. Twilight Princess set the standard for literally years, and Tears of the Kingdom had people thirsting over the lead villain in a way I hadn't seen in some time. Also, all of them are very successful in not being Demise. Farty stands represent. But if I had to pick, I'd pick Tears of the Kingdom. Despite the fact that I'm not crazy about the Demon King, there's a reason this dude was front and center of the thumbnail of this episode. The key art is great, and he's an imposing force that doesn't look overtly evil from the offset, and I think that's really effective. While his character arc is actually pretty similar to Ocarina of Time's, making himself a presentable ally turned villain, here I think the design inspirations make the double cross feel more impactful for the story. Sure, the audience was never going to think that this Ganondorf was a good guy. We know who he is, we know where he comes from, we know that he gets reincarnated every couple of decades, we get it. But I can look at this guy and believe that Hyrule might be tricked by him, whereas this dude looked straight up villainous. So for that reason alone, I'm picking him as my best design, but it's easily the hardest pick I've made so far. I also don't want to face his legion of thirsty fans. Big thanks to all of you for watching today. I've been putting off making this video for a long time, and truly I ended up having so much fun actually making it. Performing it has been really fun as well, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to check out any other videos like this one, just go and click one of the links on the screen. There's loads of other ones. These videos are a huge amount of effort, but ultimately I do just make them for the people who watch them at this point. There's still going to be more stuff coming from the channel this year, but stay up to date, click the subscription button, drop a comment, as I always do, answer quite a lot of them, and yeah, hopefully chat to you about character design and other gaming topics very, very soon. Peace out. I shouldn't be doing this is fucking cringe. Right, see you later.